just from your own. We all get through the school of hard knocks, but why take more knocks than you need to? So that's why I'm here to try to just share, pay forward some of the things that I've learned over time, and with thanks to some people who helped me out over the years. This one, I never know the name's guy. I never knew the guy's name, but my first rental property was my family home. We were moving to a different home, so let's turn it into a rental property. And I knew there was a rental house across the street, and I saw the landlord over there. And during a vacancy, I just went and asked him, "What do I do? I need to get a credit report or something, right?" So I don't know who he is, but he sent me to the national tenant network that was in Hampton at the time, was run by Mary Saylor. And she and Skip kind of took me under my wing. She showed me how to read a credit report, shared with me a list of their contractors and stuff. So I've got to give them thanks for getting me going. They also introduced me to Trig, which was meeting in Hampton at the time. And through there, I was introduced to Jeffrey Taylor and listened to some of his teaching. Mr. Landlord, I really got to give him a lot of credit for all of the years, and all of the participants on the Q&A forum on his website who go on there and share all kinds of practical day-to-day landlording advice and support to one another. You have a copy of his newsletter on your table that you can take a look at. Or like I said, the people on that Q&A forum are very valuable. I've learned a lot of these tips from them, some of which I'm going to share with you. And then, of course, since the Sailors introduced me to Trig and then Priya and all the people who are members and all the speakers, I've got to give thanks to everybody for helping me learn. New slide. So, who here is a landlord right now? Okay. Who used to be a landlord, but you quit because it was just, okay. Trash, didn't pay, whatever. Who here would like to be a landlord? Maybe one day. Okay, cool. And you want to get out of it?
Oh yeah, I want to sell it. Get out of it.
Okay. Why?
Why? In the last year and 3/4, I have done 12 evictions.
Okay, evictions for people breaking different clauses in your lease, not paying, trash in the place.
Breaking clauses, drug use,
all kinds of bad behavior. You're tired of the tenant drama. Yeah, so you want to get out. Okay.
And bed bugs.
Ooh, that's a good one I haven't had yet. So tell me, what is the most important thing you do as a landlord? Screening, of course, that's the topic tonight.
Have a well-written document so that if you have to exercise an eviction, all the cards are in your favor.
Okay, I have a well-written lease, screening people.
Yep.
What else?
Adequate deposit.
Get enough money to cover damages, potentially.
There's never enough.
Sometimes not enough in the world. New screen, I would say for today's topic, it's finding the right tenant for your particular property.
Also knowing when you do have to go to eviction, don't be panicked. Know what the playbook is. Go get your written.
That's later down the road, though. Today we're going to try to figure out how to screen and choose the right tenant, so maybe you don't have to evict them. Right. We're on the front end. That might be your back end. So I would say that the most important thing is finding the right tenant, screening. If you've beautifully remodeled your house, or like him, you've got a great lease, you have electronic payment options, you got all kinds of good things. It doesn't matter if you don't put the right person in that house.
Right.
They're going to tear it up. They're not going to pay, whatever. So next. That's me. My first tenant screening was that unknown landlord across the street. And to the side of him was a Navy family who knew another Navy family that they were friends with from a previous base. And I snail mailed them photos. It was back in the day. We didn't have all this electronic stuff. And they said they like it. They want to move in. So we let them move in. Well, I did do their credit check. Boy, was I lucky. They were really good tenants, but nothing but pure luck. Don't do it that way. Over the years, I've had, I started at first with these ready-to-live-in houses. We had the one that we were moving out of. We moved to Hampton. I bought a couple more nearby, and they were like basically ready to move somebody in. One of them, I think, needed some cleaning up and some paint. shampoo the carpet or something. Had them for several years, and then after my husband moved out and had 3 kids to raise, I kind of got out of this for a while, from around 2004 or 5 up to about 2011. When kids were getting older, and I was thinking, man, I need to scrape together something to make some more investments for my future. So got back in at that point. Again, a single family house that I just rehabbed for the sole purpose of selling it to make some money to buy a rental. And I got one that's like on the edge of the East End. Learned some stuff on that one. I've had a mobile home. I've had a rooming house. And another kind of, economy rental. And I've decided to sell all those economy ones and go back to single family houses and what I call better neighborhoods. Unfortunately, over the last couple of years, I've purchased and rehabbed 2 of them and ended up having to sell them. Factors beyond my control. But got another one underway right now in the Williamsburg area, but that's not screening, so let's move on. Always remember, when you're looking for a tenant, no high-level manager kind of person is going to move into a house, no matter how beautiful it looks, if it's in a certain neighborhood. But everybody will apply for a pretty house, whether they can qualify for it or not. So you need to figure out whether they can qualify for it or not. Ideally, you could choose the type of tenant you want even before you buy your property. That's the ideal way. Flip. How do you know what kind of tenant you want? Or where you would want to buy your property? What type of property do you want? First, know yourself. Flip it. What's your personality? Your stress tolerance, your financial goals, what's your financial reserves? Are you like really thick-skinned, streetwise, and you can give it back to them just as much as they give it to you? Or, how do you want to operate? You have to know yourself to know who you want to deal with. What's your debt tolerance? Do you have cash reserves in case they don't pay you or tear the place up? I call it ethics, but really, slums, that's a legitimate housing market. I'm not going to say that there's any housing market that's not legitimate if it's for you and it fits your personality and your goals. Somebody who just got out of prison last week for rape and murder wants to live someplace. And, if you're the one to provide that for them, well, okay, maybe you don't have to do too much screening because it's going to be bad, whatever you find. But there's a legitimate market for all kinds of different scenarios that we're going to discuss. So I wouldn't look down on anybody for choosing any of them. Flip. So once you know what you can do, what you can deal with, what your abilities are, figure out what kind of a tenant do you want. Now, what type of tenant does not mean any of those protected classes. You need to know the VRLT, download it, read it, copy it, study it, learn it, apply it. That's the perspective that I'm coming from. Be legal.
Can you just go over that?
Sorry?
VRLT.
Yeah. Right here, the Virginia Residential Landlord Tenant Act. Next slide. When you go to this website to look at it, that's what it's going to look like in case you've never seen it before. Go on there and study it. Flip. Now, who would you want as your resident? Within the legal parameters, of course. Anybody who can fog a mirror? Are you willing to rent to a student or first-time renter? Maybe you have that personality where you're kind of a teacher. We've got a couple of teachers in here. Maybe you want to help somebody get off on the right foot, learn to be a good tenant the rest of their life. You want somebody who's employed? Or do you think, well, people who are getting government checks, that's pretty stable, right? They're going to keep getting them. Do you want to work with Section 8? Well, of course. We always accept Section 8 applicants in Virginia. But is it your preference? Or retired, Social Security is their whole income. That will determine what kind of house you're going to buy. An affordable house, an elaborate house. If you want to deal with executives or families with kids, you'll need a bigger house, maybe near a school, good school district. All these things you got to think about. You want somebody who can use technology because you're implementing everything online, your application, your screening, and your lease and all that stuff's online. Might need somebody who knows a little something about technology. Will you cater to smokers, animals, or criminals? Anybody here rent to smokers? Okay. How about animals? Okay. You have maybe that's your tenant pool. So is that working out well for you? What'd you say? Notice I didn't say pets. That's coming up later. They're animals, not pets. If you ask someone, do you have any pets? They can legitimately say no. And then when they move in with their Doberman, it's my assistant's animal. It's not my pet. So you always ask about animals in the household. Switch. So as an example, you want a financially secure person who can communicate electronically. Are you going to go take out a print ad in the daily press and put up a flyer in the laundromat? Probably not. If you prefer to rent to singles, will you buy a 4-2 house? Maybe if you rent it by the room. Are they single students? Or you have to know ahead of time who you really want to rent to and then buy the house that will fit them and their needs. Will you rent to sex offenders and have a house near a school? Probably not. But somebody's got to rent to them. So, there aren't very many people who will rent to them. So if you get them and they really clean them, they'll stay, and unless they get arrested again. What kind of tenants do you think you would like? Anyway.
Perfect ones.
Perfect ones? A little more specific. What's the definition of that?
Pays, takes care of the property, no drugs, no bed bugs.
No bed bugs.
So you don't want the criminals?
No criminals.
Who likes families? Like families? I mean, family is a protected status, but I mean, you could still have a preference with your advertising where families would see the ad, if you really want to try to get those families. Oh, and that's one important tip too. Targeted advertising. This is a great Mr. Landlord tip. Of course, you advertise in general to everybody, but you can also advertise to, say, new shipbuilding, if you want somebody who's fully employed and got a good wage. Targeted advertising to who you want. Go ahead and flip it.
What's your feeling on garnishable versus non-garnishable tenants?
That's a good one too. We'll probably cover that when we get to the finances.
I like getting to military, but when I
Good one.
advertise on military sites, I don't really get a lot of response from it. It's like the military doesn't use the military housing sites unless somebody knows of one that I'm not aware of. So
We have housing officers.
because they have AHRN and they have military and military.com or something, and neither one of them seems.
And I can't tell you where to advertise for military, but that's the point, is that you want to do some targeted marketing to your preferred group, figure out where do they shop, figure out where the housing offices are, and advertise there, in addition to your general advertising. Sir?
I would say that there's a housing office off of Hampton Boulevard for the Navy. And I think when I first started looking into it, but I think they're posted in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of the military come from out of town, and I sort of like that because you can get at least while you still have a tenant in the property, you can have a no gap lease where you might have just a few days to turn it, and you don't lose any rent, and you don't have to show it. So I really
Okay, so we're going to use that as an example for a while. Military maybe would be a young singular couple coming from someplace else. How do you screen them? So what kind of, would they care about a school zone if they're just, a young early 20-something? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Will they want it wired for the internet? Early 20s? Absolutely. You got to have right? You got to have internet at that age. Somebody my age, but you wire for it. This is something I've started doing, is you put the cable in ahead of time, get it all ready to hook up. I've even been installing a Wi-Fi hook plug and play place up on a shelf. You've got an outlet. You've got the cable right there. Make it easy for them. They like that. Whatever company they hire plugs into the outside, and it's ready to go. The young 20-something's going to want something luxury, as much as the CEO from Busch Gardens or something. Maybe not. I mean, everybody watches HGTV. That's just the bane of my existence. Bathtub versus shower. Young 20-somethings are probably happy if it's just got a shower. And if you really prefer not to have a family with a whole bunch of children, if it just happens to work out that you only have a shower in this house, you're probably not going to have families with young children apply because they like to take baths, right?
If you don't have a tub,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be attractive
To families. Exactly. So think ahead.
It locks you in.
Mm-hmm. Adjacent to employment. If the neighborhood has primarily people who work at McDonald's, those might be the kind of applicants that you get. So you'll need a house that can be priced accordingly. How much does the person make who lives at McDonald's? So what rent will they be able to afford? Kind of reverse engineer it. Yes?
One of the things I look for my rooming house is my rent by the room is close to public transportation. So even if they work at Walmart, they still may live 2-3 miles away, but if it's just a short walk to catch the bus, they're very happy.
That's right.
Plus for my clientele.
Even though HRT really stinks, it is something. But if you want somebody who's more well-employed, maybe a medical worker or something, maybe you want to be adjacent to some hospitals. Like those midterm rentals, if you're running to traveling nurses or somebody, think about the location there and who you might pick up, because people don't want to travel a long ways to get back and forth to work. And like he was saying, near public transportation, important. If you're renting to people with pets, would you like to be near a park, a dog park, have a fenced-in yard, those sorts of things? New slide. So there's basically 3 things, which you were starting to hit on before. Want somebody to pay rent on time, take good care of the house or apartment, as the case may be, and be a good neighbor. The 3 basic things. But how do you know if they're going to pay rent on time? How do you know if they're going to take good care or be a good neighbor? Anybody have an idea? How do you know if they're going to pay rent on time?
How do I know if they pay rent? I know how they're going to generally fit all those things. I take a look at their car.
That's one thing I let there.
Is in good condition. Chances are they will take care of my property in good condition. Be responsible.
Okay. Anybody know how you're going to tell if they pay rent on time?
2 things.
Mhm.
I always check where they're living at. I always check with their current landlord.
Good. I didn't think it had too many people doing it.
I haven't even given notice, and the landlord is shocked to hear.
Oh, you check with the current landlord. Okay.
Current landlord. The other thing is I use like National Tenant Network, something to do the screening.
Mhm.
Instead of being responsible for a direct credit check, I mean, you have to jump through hoops to be able to do that.
All right.
Jeffrey Taylor also has credit screening.
There is. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if I got, I mean. That's
Good.
a rookie mistake.
How can we maybe find out if somebody's going to be a good neighbor? Do you have an idea on that one?
Drive by where they're living now.
Okay. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was on the other thing, but the paying on time. I just look at their credit report. I look at the collections and how many times they paid made on-time payments and stuff.
Collections. Yep. Credit reports. Looking at the credit.
report. A lot of times you get the criminal background history. You can see what's in there.
That might indicate if they'll be a good neighbor or are they a drug dealer. Flip to the next slide.
It comes down to just basic civics. If they got a lot of problems on there, then they're going to have a lot of problems.
Okay. Well, they say they have a good job. So are they going to pay rent on time?
Maybe.
That's not enough to go by.
That ratio is.
Exactly. And more than they earn too. Next slide. Here are some different ways that you can tell if they're going to pay rent on time, some of which have been touched. Their rental history. However, I would say not just well, you could talk to the current landlord if you want to, but if he's really trying to get them out because they're breaking all the rules, he's going to tell you, oh, they're great, please take them, right? You really need to talk to the previous landlord, who now has nothing to lose to telling you the truth if they will respond to you. And let me encourage everybody to please respond and let's talk to each other, because we could really help each other out. So many times you just get ignored and get no response when trying to speak to a prior landlord. For their finances, of course, you can look at their pay stubs. You have to decide how far back you want to go. How long do you want them to have been employed there? Are you going to say they can't have had more than 2 jobs in the last 3 years, so they're not, a new job every 2 months? I'm just planting some ideas in your head that you have to decide what your criteria are going to be, and how much how much income above the rent. Some people say 3 times the rent, gross or net rent, or gross or rent net income. Other people have different ratios. It depends on your specific property that you're trying to fill. Also, you'll have different criteria for different properties. Bank accounts. Get them to give you their bank statements. Again, for the last month, the last 2, 3 months. Their credit report is going to show you if they have collections, if they have judgments from previous landlords they owe money to. And we'll have a sample of that coming up. And of course, their landlord and court history will tell you how many unlawful detainers have they had against them. Do they have judgments for previous landlords that they owe money to? New slide. How are you going to know if they take good care of the house? They look like nice, polite, neat people. You mentioned a car. I would say the car can be a good indicator. If the car is filled with trash, there might be, it's not a scientific fact, but might be a chance the house is kind of filled with trash too. Somebody had said, if it's, sandal season and the lady comes with painted toenails, like really put together, her house is probably going to be neat. Now, these are just, things that people have experienced. It's nothing scientific, but you can come up with your own ideas. The most important thing, though, new slide, is what you had alluded to driving by. Okay, some more things. Previous landlord, I already mentioned, their car, and during the showing, if they get to a showing, do they come in smelling a pot with the boobs popping out? Or do you care? I don't know. Do they say stuff like comments about the neighborhood, comments about the house? Oh, you ought to do that, or you should have fixed this, or can I paint? You can make a lot of judgments by that.
Over time, I have come to believe that if they're difficult at the beginning, or obnoxious, or any of those, it will not get better if you rent.
That's a perfect time to mention cooperation is what you're talking about. You gotta screen for cooperation. We purposely put things in the process where they have to cooperate and follow your rules and do what you ask them to do. You gotta screen for cooperation. So that could be on time for your showing. It could mean bring in their photo ID you asked them to bring, or whatever other thing. Some folks say bring your current lease, so you can see it's really their name on it and not their baby daddy or somebody, and they're just, staying there illegally. You could ask them to do different things just for the cooperation. If you have a pre-screening form, but they want to call you and tell you their whole life story instead, they're not cooperating. They're not following the process. So, yeah, that's very important, because if they won't work with you appropriately now, why would they do it after they're in your house? New slide. The real key to find out if they're taking care of the house is not just driving by, but doing an in-home visit. Has anybody here actually gone inside of their current residence of an applicant? You have? Good, a couple of people on it. That is how you will really find out. Now, why do you think that's a bad idea? You're shaking your head violently. Why have you not gone into people's houses?
I don't have time for it, but I asked him a very interesting question, which is, can you tell me why you're leaving where you're at and coming to me in detail? I want to hear that. So that's the one area where I will listen to the story of the racket. And I want to understand why are you moving? Why are you coming? Now, if it's military, I understand they're coming to the area. But when they're changing from Newport News to Hampton, well, why are you moving? What's...
Do people ever lie to try to get what they want?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
But I
That's in here
listen
too.
for all that and take a bunch of notes. So then I look to see if everything adds up. But that's one
So
of the ways
if there's mold in my house, does that mean there's a leak that the landlord won't fix coming through the roof? Does it mean they didn't bother to tell the landlord that there's a leak? Or does it just mean they never turn on the bathroom fan and they don't clean?
There's a lot
Just saying.
There's a lot to unpack.
An in-home visit is a very valuable thing. 2-minute in-home visit, that's all. If they have an animal, you also see how that dog reacts in their home turf when somebody else comes in. If you're not going to be able to go in without being attacked to do maintenance and such, you'll want to know that up front. Also on the topic of the dogs, if the first thing you see when you get out of your car is poop, 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 that says something, right? Now, in reality, the folks who really keep their homes nice, they're perfectly fine. Oh, sure, come on in. Let me show you how I'm decorated. It's great. And it builds goodwill. I have found that people are glad to know that I'm a landlord who cares about the condition of my property. I'm going to keep it nice. It's a partnership. You tell me if it needs something. You keep it nice. I keep it repaired. It's going to be wonderful. The people who refuse are telling you something if they won't let you come to their home. Now, of course, you're not looking for, like it's a picture in a magazine. There might be laundry on the couch getting folded and maybe a magazine or some toys. But go ahead and flip the slide. What you don't want to see when you walk in is like flies and stench and a dog you didn't tell me about. And there's an example on here. You're like, can you all read that from back there? I'll read it. I hate it when people read slides, but for anybody online or somebody in the back who can't see it, this is from the Q&A forum on MrLandlord.com. This regular contributor here said, okay, I messed up. It was in a whole string of conversations about doing an in-home visit. I accidentally broke my own rule. An applicant was screened as green, which is his system for approved on paper for income, landlord references, and all that, and was distracted. So when he talked to him by phone to ask about pets, or do they need to rent appliances or anything like that, he jumped the gun, said the home was theirs, and they delivered funds to his deposit-only bank account. As I did my checklist, I realized I forgot the 2-minute in-home visit prior to final approval. He teaches never to skip that step. New slide. So texted them, apologized, and scheduled the visit. I stepped inside, and to my dismay, every wall, including the bathroom and kitchen walls, was covered 4 feet high in kid scribbles, markers, crayons, pencils. Told them on the spot that the office will not approve their application and we will refund their money immediately. He said, I'll clean it up so I can get approved. It's too late. But if they draw on the wall in your home, I'll clean it. Well, really? That's not what you're showing from, you didn't clean it here, right? So, slide. But he's like, nope, not in my freshly painted home. He was disappointed not to rent the home, but a vacant home is always better than the wrong residence in it. It was his checklist that saved the day. And I highly recommend that you use checklists. Mr. Landlord has taught me you've got to be consistent. Talk more about your paperwork later. But checklist for everything. You can think in your head and get your wheels turning about where could you use a checklist in your whole screening process? A lot of different places. And this is one place. Now, I want to make a note about this. I told him on the spot that they're not going to be approved. That might not have been the wisest thing to do. We've heard reports about assaults and murders of landlords who are trying to collect the rent or serving somebody with a late notice or whatever. So you got to always remember to stay safe. I suggested it'd probably be better for him to go back to the office and then send him a message. Tell them that they were not approved. Because you know how crazy people can get, right? Got to always be safe. Watch your back. Next one. Here's another person's comment. The serious renters do not object if they have nothing to hide, while the ones you wouldn't accept always scuff at it. It has saved me tons of money in evictions, knowing how they take care of their current place, or if they are lying about their pets, extra occupants, etc. Somebody else says, oh yes, since we have started requiring it, we have not had units trashed. A little damage here or there, but you can tell how someone will keep your house by how they keep their current space, even if they live with family or friends. It's a must-do and will save you thousands in the long run. And don't hesitate to deny someone because their current place is not clean and tidy. It will save you big. We even do them for out-of-state people. Hire a realtor in the area, the best money you can spend. If they say no, it tells you all you need to know. Now, in the example of military coming from somewhere else, about a year and a half or so ago, I took a young airman who was coming from New Mexico. How do you screen somebody like that? Well, I set up where we can do things electronically. You do FaceTime, right? You do a Skype video tour, talk to them, and hire a local realtor for like $75 or something. The new ones who are sitting at the desk who have no business, send them your checklist. So when they go, they can take a couple pictures. They can write down things like, what's the first thing you smell when they open the door? Is there apple pie baking or poop? And, you know, just things on the checklist. What do you see in the yard when you get out of the car? This is how you can tell if they're going to be a good neighbor. Is the yard like trash with all kinds of crap, like annoying the neighbors? Because everybody else has theirs nice and neat. Next slide. Which leads us to how you know if they're going to be a good neighbor. Well, they said they're members of the neighborhood watch where they live now. Who knows? People lie. Next slide. The previous landlord, not the current landlord again. Their criminal history. They might not be a good neighbor if the cops are there all the time, if, you know, they've been convicted of drug dealing or something. What they say and do at a showing. Again, just their actions. You know, a lot of times I love it when the neighbors are out. Sometimes I'll even ask the neighbor, please come out in the yard when I have the showing at 4 o'clock or whatever, you know, just so you can see how they interact. You know, you can tell a lot by how somebody greets or doesn't greet a neighbor. The in-home visit, again. And yeah, I mentioned police and animal control calls. Might be a little harder to find them rather than convictions, but if you talk to their current neighbors during your visit, it's going a little far, but sometimes you really got to go far to find these things out. If you know, for example, they have a dog that might be of a vicious breed, but you take that breed as long as the dog is well behaved. Maybe when you go to your in-home visit and you see one of their neighbors out, ask them, hey, does their dog ever get loose? Or animal control ever been here? And speaking of animals, I have a separate animal application. It used to be a pet application. Now it's an animal application that everybody must complete, no matter what the animal is. But if it's a dog, now everybody has their own ways of screening animals, right? But I say, bring them with you to the showing. Because if the dog's not allowed in your car, they're sure not going to be allowed in my house. I'll have them demonstrate basic obedience commands. The dog should sit and stay and come when you call it, and it should walk on a loose leash, no dislocated shoulders. It should behave itself. And that's all down. It's part of the checklist. It's the exact same thing for every single one. Got to be consistent. Next slide.
How do you handle ESAs?
I have never had one yet. However, they still would fill in the entire animal application. And I do not believe it's illegal to still require them to be spayed or neutered and have their shots. So that would be the same as any other animals. And if they do not behave well, they're not being rejected because they're an ESA. They're being rejected because they're lunging at me viciously. I had one come, it bit me. First, I had his paws up on all the windows and the counter, and I'm like, you're not correcting this dog. All of a sudden, it lunged at me. I had nice thick jeans on. Thankfully, I got a few holes in my clothes, but not my body.
But I had one show up,
Yeah.
and I let them know that if there's a noise problem or a danger problem being caused by
Mhm.
it, they will be sent out because of the violation of the rules,
Right.
because of an ESA.
That's because there's a noise nuisance, not because it's an
Or
ESA.
damage.
Yep.
Noise,
Damage.
or danger to other threat to other
They're still
tenants.
responsible for any damage that's done, and need to pay for it right away with the next month's rent. So your screening criteria needs to be objective, measurable, legal, and written down. Write it down beforehand. You have predetermined screening criteria that you have written down and documented and dated before you advertise it, that every single person who inquires about that house checks all those boxes off, and you're being consistent, you're covering your own behind, and you've got a record of why would a person not be selected and another one was. In case somebody accuses you that you used the wrong motives for that, you got your checklist, you got your checks, you've got your notes, everybody's exactly the same. Your criteria needs to be detailed and specific to your property. Again, you might have one property in this neighborhood where your requirements are completely different than this one over here. So you need it written for each one. Now, tell me, do you have any automatic disqualifications? The very most important things, like don't even waste my time anymore, if that's what you've got going on. Anybody over here?
Selling drugs.
Okay, if you find out they were selling drugs. What was yours?
Felony in the last 5 years.
Conviction, I
Felony
assume.
conviction in the last 5 years.
Okay,
But earlier
anybody
than
else?
that, I will review.
Okay.
If they're dishonest at all.
Automatically, if you catch them in a lie. Okay, they put something on the application, and during your screening, you find out it's false. All right.
Application doesn't matter. Anything they say is dishonest automatically.
Anything else? Somebody over here is not saying anything? What would you automatically disqualify somebody for? Is there no way you want them in your house?
Let's say a lack of confidence in how they present themselves.
That's not exactly objective and measurable, though, is it? Maybe their income. I mean, that's kind of the obvious one, right? If the rent is $600 and they bring in $600 a month, I mean, there's no way. Yes?
So I've had issues in the past with unrelated multiple tenants. Like 3 friends want to rent it, and they're all in the hospitality industry. You see where this might go wrong. How do you know, that's kind of shaky.
Right. In most places around here, you can have 3 unrelated people living in a single family house neighborhood. I've not done that except for the rooming house. That counts. That doesn't really count. But, others online have said, some of the things that they do is like require that these people have lived together already. They're not just getting together now to test it out in your house, but they've already lived together for a year or something like that. You use your imagination to see how can you figure out whether or not they're going to get along, and one of them's not going to just take off and quit paying rent. Well, maybe because they already proved themselves to be good roommates, and how you can find that out for the previous landlords.
I have a question on that I've noticed in the last year with screening, especially, Zillow, all this broad-based gets out. I'm trying to get fewer applications rather than more because you're getting 50 inquiries within a 24-hour window. The old school thinking like, well, you process the order received. My experience is you can throw the first 10 away because those are the unqualified people who are.
What would it be that makes you say, throw it away, throw it away?
Right.
What is it that you would see that would make you do that?
No, I wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying that it's just my experience is that the people who respond immediately are usually, not always,
Oh, I see what you
poorly
mean.
qualified. They've been rejected a lot.
They clicked on it so fast they didn't even read the ad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And some people aren't serious because it's so easy, you just click the button.
Right. On Zillow, it's just
very
like click,
hard
click, click,
to
click.
figure out who's actually interested. You know, if
Mhm.
you reach out, they're like, oh, which one was that? Which is okay.
Well, I'm going to touch on something in a minute that's going to help with
I
that.
guess my question is with their housing is how do, you know, my mindset is, you know, for the first 48 hours, I'm going to pick the strongest of everything that comes in to start with, because how do I even begin with that volume of applications?
We're going to get to that in a minute.
So
For me, an automatic DQ is a smoker. So my pre-qualifying questionnaire, I said, how many people in the house smoke inside? Who smokes outside? If they say yes to either of them, they're out. New slide. So here's an example of how your screening criteria needs to be specific, measurable. You can say, well, they're going to be clean. Okay, well, what does that mean? Maybe they're just coming straight from work because, you know, they're working 12-hour shifts and they're working hard and they're making money. And they kind of got a little BO going on, but are you going to disqualify them for that? I don't know. Or you could be a little more specific. Say, okay, they're going to have clean clothes when they come to the showing and not smell of smoke or liquor. Like they're not going to come under the influence of something. They're not going to have pinpoint, you know, slurred speech and all this. You say very more specifically in a checklist kind of form. When you go to the in-home visit, there's not going to be any foul odor, no trash or dog feces in the yard, no excessive trash or pests visible in the house. You're not going to see animals that aren't on the application, and on and on. Very specific and consistent and measurable. Next. Now here's touching on what this lady was just talking about. So once you've decided what kind of person are you looking for, what are your automatic DQs that you don't want, you have to collect information from them in the form of an application or such. So keep in mind that an application is not complete. You cannot begin to process it until all the questions are completely answered and you've got all the supporting documentation. A lot of people fall out just from that because they don't send you their pay stub or they don't send, you know, whatever it is. Don't waste time on it. Don't work harder than the applicant does to try to get the information that they should be sending you. Cooperation test. So how do you do this? Back in the day, way back in the beginning, I had a voicemail machine with those little bitty, you know, cassette tape thingies in there. I would say, you know, thank you for inquiring. If you're interested, you know, leave me a message, whatever. And you spent all day doing nothing but calling people back. On my last vacancy, I stopped counting. I had to be at least 300 or 400 inquiries. Since we're online, everybody just clicks the Zillow button. That's insane. There aren't enough hours in the day, right? Who still screens people over the phone? Huh?
If you make them pay, they're less likely to apply. If you make them pay
Okay.
to apply, it cuts down the list.
Yeah. Who still screens and talks to people on the phone? Okay. Do you use paper applications? Or do you use electronic methods? Do you pre-screen people before you get to the whole?
Yes.
Electronic forms automation.
Yes.
So what I recommend that I've learned to do more recently is no paper apps. It takes ink, paper. They just take it. They never bring it back. It's a waste. And then I have to meet them in person before I even know anything about them. In Virginia, electronic communication is allowed in the courts. So I use that. Pre-screening is very important. Going back to those things that are automatic disqualifiers, the very most important 5 or 6 things, make a little form that they can fill out online so you know if you're even going to waste any time on them or if they're hopeless and they're just dreaming about getting your house. I do that online. There are different ways you can do it. Use a Google form. You can make little drop-down boxes and fill in the blanks and all these different things and email them a link to it. A lot of people won't even fill it out. So they're disqualified. They're not following your procedures. They're not cooperating. A lot of them will fill it out and they'll fail. So you can just make your checklist. You know, they didn't fill in the form, had bad information in the form, whatever it is, they're disqualified. You have a comment on that?
Well, I was going to say, one thing I finally realized to make sure that I'm telling everybody the same thing for housing I do a cover sheet basically, that says how to apply for my property.
Mhm.
And I don't accept smokers, I got, you know, the things that automatically, I'm not even
Mhm.
looking at your application. And up front, that's part of the application, is the cover letter, and that way you don't have to get to the bottom to, oh, smoker. You know, and just make sure, and that way you're covered, because you've told everybody the same thing.
Okay, so on your actual application, you tell them basically what you want.
Right here.
Okay.
The cover to whatever,
Mhm.
you know, and then, and you're absolutely right about, don't even look at the application if it's not complete,
Right.
including all supporting documentation.
Right. There are some who would argue that when you advertise your qualifications, then they'll take those and they'll lie and waste some of your time.
Well,
But, you know,
that's a
I'm
lot
saying
anyway.
different things work for different people.
In that early stage, in that early process, are you required to give them correspondence back saying they've been rejected or no?
No. The way I have it set up now with the help of a computer genius programmer is automation. What I say in my ads is do not just click a button or fill in some form on this website or whatever. If you're interested, inquire by sending a brief email to this email address. So a lot of people fail right there because they just keep clicking the button. They never read the ad. But if they send an email to that address, it has an automatic vacation responder that sends them the pre-qualifying questionnaire. I only know about the people if they complete the questionnaire successfully, because it's been set up to go automatically. If they put, say they're smokers, they automatically get a reply generated, sorry, but this house is not suitable for smokers, or whatever it might be. So this guy did set it up so they do get a response in that way. And if someone completes it successfully, then I get a notice on my email. Those are the people I start to communicate with and spend a little bit of time on. So that pre-screening automation has saved my life. This last time when I had 300 inquiries to a house, maybe 50 of them completed the form, maybe 12 of them passed the pre-qualifying form. No, not even that many passed the pre-qualifying form. So it really helps you to cut down on your time and your kind of, wasted time with people who are just dreaming about getting into your house.
What if they say they're, because they think, oh, this is a trick question, yeah, non-smoker, click not smoker.
Mm-hmm.
We could just not smoke inside, we'll smoke outside.
Right.
And then what happens is they start that, right? And there are a couple, girlfriend starts smoking inside.
Mm-hmm.
He starts smoking because it's just too far to just go out onto the porch right there.
Very good
Smoke.
thinking.
It's cold.
Yep.
It's too cold, yeah. So I'm like,
It's humid.
Which is why you always need to word all of your questions very carefully.
but you know how you
Okay.
find out if they've been smoking? You go to the glass, right? The window, just do that. Smoke.
You can smell it.
Well, that's something that you will tell during your 2-minute in-home visit. Does it smell like smoke?
They spray in
Their current home.
stuff.
Yeah. But that's good because you're thinking it does make a difference how you word your questions, whether it's a pre-screening form or your actual application. Try not to make them too leaning or open-ended, kind of make it yes or no, or pick one, or be very careful about how you do it. Like I said before, on my pre-screening form, it asked how many people in the household smoke inside, how many people in the household smoke outside only. So they think, oh, well, that's okay. I'll just tell them I smoke outside. But no, I don't want, the smell still comes in with your cigarettes, butts all over.
So I have a question. With your automation, how do you collect the application fee?
Well, that's a little later. First of all, this is just the pre-screening. It doesn't cost anybody anything. It's just weeding out the people who are automatically disqualified for some sort of like the big top 5 or 6 reasons, whether it be income or smoking or, I can't think right now, what are all my questions? Do you currently have the funds immediately available for, move-in funds? Or whatever it is that you feel is the most important things you need to know. Maybe do you have an animal and it's not an animal-friendly home? Whatever's most important to you. This is what I want you to take away from here tonight. Think about all this stuff And what are your qualifications going to be for this house? And what are your qualifications for that apartment over there? Switch.
You're talking about animals. If it's what is that called? Training dog or whatever, you know.
That's a service animal,
A service
which is
animal.
different than an ESA.
I know that, but they say that they got all this paperwork, and all of a sudden, I guess if they don't have the paperwork, they're not coming in.
This is true, and Virginia at least does allow us to require certain documentation from an actual doctor that they've really been seeing, and that you can screen a little bit to find out if they're legitimate or not. Now, since we're talking about that, one clue is like if they say, well, my ESA or my service animal is registered on this National Registry of Service Animals. There's no such thing. How many times do you get in your email all these ads? Oh, take your pet with you any place you want to go. Just call us and spend 2 minutes and $50 and you get this letter. I mean, it's rampant out there. And it's a shame because people with legitimate service animals should not be excluded from housing and make things more difficult for them. But all these other people try to take advantage of it because they don't want to pay pet rent. So along those lines, something that I've done is I make my fenced-in backyard house animal friendly. You can already have up to 2 animals. The deposit's already higher and the rent's already higher. It's all built in. It's not pet rent or pet deposit or whatever, just an animal friendly house. So there's kind of one way to maybe approach it. But all the animals have to, have their own application and pass. Vet records, they got to be spayed, neutered. Now, when do you collect information that you can use to determine whether or not these people meet your criteria? Different ways that people do things. I do pre-screening before they even get to a showing, automatically, online, electronically. Somebody might hold an open house. I used to do this and then hand everybody a paper application, a few pages that I printed with my ink and paper and then just disappear. So I don't recommend it, obviously. You could just talk to them at the showing. See what your gut tells you. They seem nice. Some folks make them pay a fee and complete the full application before they even let them see the house. Types of showings. Do you meet everybody in person? Some folks do lockbox showing. You can give them a code. They can let themselves in, look around. They don't need you to say, here's the kitchen, here's the bathroom. There's pros and cons. Too bad in your neighborhood. What is it? Yeah.
The last 3 years, I send videos of property. I never give them, most of the time, I never give a walkthrough. It never makes it that far.
Mm-hmm.
So for that video, a walkthrough video has worked great for me.
Unless they're like coming from New Mexico or someplace, I do like to meet people after they've gone through a couple of steps. Pre-qualifying. I do like to meet them in person because that's the only way you can kind of see if they're bleary-eyed or slurring or smell like smoke, that sort of thing. So everybody's got their own ways depending on what it is you're trying to find out. How do you want to gather that information? Next slide. But no matter how you collect it, how efficiently you want to collect it, you still need all this information. How do you find out what their income is? Well, obviously you can get the pay stubs. But like I mentioned before, how many pay stubs do you want? How far back? How long do they need to be employed to show you that they're consistently and stably employed? Or an award letter if they're getting some sort of benefits from the government or Social Security or whatever, or disability payments, whatever that might be. Always run all the reports. Housing, criminal, credit, get them all. We'll touch on that later too, where you can get them if you don't already have it hooked up for you. Bank statements. If I want everybody for my houses to have a checking and savings account right now for the better single family houses that I'm going back to, because, well, when they send you their statement, you can see in checking what income is really deposited. Everybody gets automatic deposit, right? Pretty much. And how much is left at the end of the month? What are their spending habits? What's it going on? Does it seem to be responsible? Primarily, if there's anything left over to go into savings, you can see in the savings account, do they have enough for move-in funds or not? So that's very helpful. I find that people who are financially secure have these accounts. They generally do have bank accounts. I see a government issued photo ID, not a work ID that anybody can just make on their own home computer, but an actual real ID with their photo. I actually have them send that to me before we go to a showing, and I will let them see my mug so that you know you're not being scammed. This is the right person. We can let you in. It adds some security, some good feelings in there. You might ask them to bring, something else that proves where they are now, that they're really the ones can get the utilities in their name, that sort of thing. And at some point, certainly on the application itself, if not pre-screening, I do it at the application stage. Why do you want personal contacts? I mean, there's going to give you personal references of the friends who are going to say nice things about them, right?
Track them down when they skip out on you.
Bingo. Somebody you can contact to try to help you get them in line, pay the rent, and there's more. What else would it be for?
So Skip said earlier, always said, get their grandparents' information.
If you would be, your actions would embarrass you if your grandma knows about it. Yeah. Also, I've had this happen. Somebody is arrested, goes to jail. Somebody dies. Somebody's like in a horrible accident, they're in a hospital, and then they go to long-term care. Who's going to take care of their stuff? So when you get contacts, have at least one or two or as many as you can get with a section in your lease or rental agreement that says, I authorize this person to deal with my landlord regarding all these rental things, and they can take possession of my property. They can, they can do everything on my behalf if I become incapacitated, incarcerated, or dead, basically. So they give you their permission in writing already so that you can call this person and try to take care of things.
Yeah, I motivate them by saying, if you don't have someone to deal with it, I will get it by default. I have to sign.
Well, if you
They
don't
don't like that.
If you don't have their permission to deal with someone,
It's in the lease saying, oh, by the way, when we
Right.
get to this point, you don't have someone to take care of your stuff. If you leave, die, whatever else,
Mhm.
if you don't have someone named and designated to do this, it will revert to me.
then you have to go through the legal process of either abandonment or eviction
Yeah.
to really get the possession of your property back, which can take a whole lot longer than calling Aunt Mary, who is authorized to come and take his crap and pay his final bill,
No, that's the
or get
first
his
choice.
accounting statement.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the first choice, yeah.
So, new slide. What time is it?
We're almost at 8:30.
Okay. So automation, again, don't answer the phone. I mean, why waste your time listening to all this? Automate everything, pre-screen first for the most important things, and you can come up with your own questions. Next slide. Real responses to pre-screening questions. You can read through a couple of them. 2 adults and 2 children. 2 children equals 1 adult, right? For maximum capacity. Why are you leaving your current residence? Too many police around. To the neighbors or to you? I mean, new slide. The best one. Okay, income, moving costs. Next slide. There's the best one. Are you a smoker? Only crack, but I'll only smoke on the balcony. Well, thank you. I'm not going to spend any more time on you. Real answers that people got. So like we talked about before, what do you need to know? And format your questions carefully. Flip.
How do you address legal marijuana?
It's still federal illegal, and it's not legal here for recreational use either. And if it's a no smoking building, you can take it as an edible if it's prescribed by somebody. So yeah, we went over that. Keep going. Be standard checklist. Keep going. Okay, I want to let you take a look at this a little bit. This is a real person that I had apply for a place. I checked their address, matched on their ID. For this case, we'll say they had enough income. Flip it over. And they admitted to me they owe some money for not giving enough notice. They owe January and February rent to their current landlord that they're leaving. So they're being honest. Okay, good. Flip it. So I sent this to their landlord, who replied and said, "Yep, that's the address that he was at, and he owes this much, which is about 2 months rent and $1,000 a month, late fees and whatever." And he says here he's in a payment plan and he's paying. So if he straightens that up, I would rent to him again. I'm like, okay, cool. But keep going. Flip this way. Just because he might rent to him again, does that mean he meets your criteria? Be aware that Virginia criminal records are no longer reported to all these national criminal websites, by the way. I found this out after a roomer told me he had a criminal record, but it didn't show up on his report. But you can go and check yourself in Virginia courts for whatever addresses and localities they were living in, at least to try to get an idea. Switch. Okay, so the same guy, there's his address, but on the credit report over here has different addresses, has 2 more addresses since that one. What? Why do you leave that out? So the point is, something doesn't match. He didn't put in what the rent was. He didn't put in the dates that he lived here. Okay, flip. Don't do more work than they're doing to try to get qualified. Go ahead some more. And here's the rest of his credit report. Okay, he owes 2 months rent, right? But look at what he did for the whole year. This guy wasn't paying his rent. This is all from the same landlord, unlawful detainers, and keep going, couple, and judgments for it. Keep going, the whole year. So even though the landlord said, yeah, he's doing a payment plan, he's okay. Well, I don't want him, So have your own criteria, and if you decline somebody because of something on their credit report, you got to send them a letter that says you can see your credit report. Flip up. All right, we already touched on this. Be consistent. Everybody's exactly the same.
I'm sorry, you just
Flip
said,
up.
sorry. Did you just say that if you deny someone based on a credit report, you would have to respond with a?
You have to send them a letter that says you were denied based on your credit report, and here's how you can get a copy of your credit report and see if there's a mistake on it, basically. Now, if there's something else that disqualifies them, just use that.
Yeah.
You don't have to say it was because of the credit report. Keep going.
The listing, it says store private information.
Well, yes, that is important. Whether you put it on an exterior memory card or something off your computer, a locked file cabinet for old style paper things, make sure you keep it securely. I mean, it's a private information. You probably got their social security number and their address and their face. I mean, nobody wants their identity stolen because of you. You're going to have a big problem. If anything verbal, doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. It needs to be written down. It needs to be checked off. And again, store things, keep them securely, and keep them because someday somebody might accuse you of something. And you'll need to show, look at all these people who have the same checklist, and this is the reason this person wasn't selected, and this is the person who was selected, who's the same, whatever's the protected class as this person who's accusing me. You want to have some records. Next slide. Okay, next one. So here's another applicant, a real applicant. Do you think he would qualify? This was for a rooming house that I used to have on King Street. He gave me this address. Okay, gave me another address. Flip it up a little bit. His only income is government disability. Next. He got nothing in savings, $45 in his checking account, but he does have savings and checking. He says he's got $465 to be able to move in, but he's only got $45 in his. Okay, keep going. And he gave me a couple contacts. No criminal history. He never had utilities shut off or anything like that. Flip. And his permission to check everything. You think he would qualify? I don't know. Flip up. He sent me the information about his income. And I did a bad thing here. I actually wrote on the documents he submitted to me, if you want to make notes, make a copy. Don't screw the information that they give you. Make your notes on a copy or a separate piece of paper. Something I've learned since then. Keep going. He has absolutely no FICO score whatsoever. His current address was someplace in North Carolina. Like what? But he was here in Hampton. Well, and his only judgments are medical. Not too much. So I think that was the end. Is there another page for him? All right. No criminal records. No eviction records. This gentleman actually qualified because it was for the rooming house, was really low rent, and all I cared about was criminal history and you don't owe a previous landlord any money. He had enough to pay for a room. He was actually the first one who moved in, and he was a stellar. He was a retiree. He sat on the porch. He watched the neighborhoods. He kept everybody else in line. And even though there was some kind of mixed up information there, he talked to me. For this property, it was a different process that I used, but he upfront told me and explained to me what these different things were. Why is it a North Carolina address and all that? Back there it said that was actually the address of the company who owned this house. Was supposed to be like a halfway house. It's supposed to be a clean and sober house. He had finished the program at the VA Medical Center to be clean and sober, and went to this house. He says, "It's not. I got to get out of there." And he turned out to be the best guy. His friends would come and take him to his AA meetings, and he was a great tenant, even though no credit score and all this stuff. So the whole point there is different properties, different qualifications. You never know. So I think we're pretty much at the end. Remember, it's not rented until you got all the move-in money. Utilities are in their name. It's not rented until it's rented. Keep showing it. This is the fellow who did automation for me. Check out MrLandlord.com. You got newsletters on the table there. A link from MrLandlord.com. There are online credit checks. You can get your first reports free. And I use this rentapplication.net where you can create your own questions and create an application. And it has the ability for people to upload stuff. Their pay stub, their ID, and all that stuff can be uploaded there. The only problem is they will not give you the person's full social security number, which you need to run a credit check. I normally run my credit checks through this one, which costs a lot less than the rent application credit check does. So trying to work around that and come up with something different. Switch. Clear Now will give you automated ACH rent payments. Of course, there are other places where you can do this too. These are some that I use, where they sign up as soon as they're moving in and signing a lease. It takes it out of their bank account every month, puts it in mine. No time for other questions, but it's a little off topic. I just got this rehab in Williamsburg. It's gutted to the studs. I got to put it back together again. If anybody is interested in hanging out with me, checking it out, learning what all it takes, the last 10 years or so, my MO has been buying a dump and fix it up. Nice for nice people. I'm happy to pass forward, anything that I know, help anybody out getting started. And that's my contact information over there. So thank you all. I can't believe it took that long, but thanks for sticking with me. And I hope that you guys have some thoughts to be working in your head and thinking about just how detailed and how you can thin out the crowd before you deal with them. One more comment?
What's your turnover time between tenants usually?
It took me a couple of months, this last one, until the people came from New Mexico. That was bad. It was better empty than occupied by the wrong tenants who were going to tear it up. But working towards getting a whole lot quicker by showing it while the people are already living there. And if they're good residents, they'll probably allow you to do that. They'll be keeping the house nice, and you give them a little incentive. If you cooperate, we get somebody signed up before you leave, I'll give you $100 or whatever. Because some other people say they've got turnarounds in a day or two, so that's a good goal.
So, what are the advantages of you being the landlord yourself versus hiring a company, which a lot of people that I know and myself in the past have hired a company to manage?
Instead of hiring a management company, manage it myself. Apologies to anybody in here who's a property manager, but I believe that the property management business is set up basically contrary to what I want as a landlord, because generally the property manager will get paid whenever they sign a lease and put a new person in the house.
1 month rent.
A lot, yep. They'll get paid for advertising it. They'll get paid a little bonus above the actual cost for when you're doing repairs. So really, why do they care about finding somebody well qualified? Because it's not going to cost them anything. They're going to make money if somebody goes in there and tears your house up and you have to fix it.
Yeah.
They're going to make money if they move out soon and then they get paid again and put somebody else in. So just the way that it's set up, it's kind of counterintuitive, and I just like to have more control over it. Kind of a controlling person, I guess. I stay in touch. I'll go make my periodic maintenance visits and look under the sinks and see if you catch a leak early. Take care of it.
Filter change is a free inspection.
Yep.
Remember that.
Periodic maintenance visit. Usually it's about a month after they move in, and then maybe another 3 months. Everything's looking good. You can wait for 6, or make it once a year. But got to go in once in a while and see. Of course, maintenance. I mean, I found a leak under the sink that they hadn't realized yet. You got to tighten up the drains a little bit. You're really looking for that stuff. Plus, of course, while you're there, you see how they're keeping the place.
So I manage property for other people,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually take great care in placing tenants.
Okay.
I take the same care in placing tenants in other properties as I would my own.
Very
I also
good.
own my own landlord property.
You're one of the unicorns.
So my question is, though, as a property manager, what could I do for you or the typical landlord to make you trust me and make you think that I'm not going to just place someone that was screwed up?
I would think that would be very beneficial if you would screen applicants according to my checklist that I've prepared and given you for my qualification standards, and use my lease that I've carefully been crafting and modifying over all the years.
So to answer your question, some of the incentives I do is when I make my visits, I would also send them cards as far as the wedding anniversary. Send them if they have kids or birthday, like Amazon 25 gift card. So it also makes them want to stay there longer as well, because they treat your home as their home. And that
Be attentive.
works very well for me.
You're talking about tenants, and I agree with you on that. I was talking about how do I convince the landlord that I'm going to do just as good a job as they would.
My biggest pet peeve is the management company I have always seems to find the most expensive contractors to go in and do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no regard whether it's the tenant's fault or something that should have been fixed ahead of time. So I always get this huge inflated bill for something that either I can't imagine that was wrong with the house. It seemed to have been something with the tenant, or I could have done, or could have had one of the contractors that I've already hired do for much less.
So it sounds like you would like it if your management company would use some contractors that you have on a list and make a determination about the cause of the damage.
Right.
Who should be responsible for it?
Right.
Make the tenant pay. Yeah.
Because it's coming out of your pocket.
Right. So even as a landlord, I provide my realtor with, here's a list of all the equipment, all the model numbers, all the serial numbers. Here's the contacts. Here's the companies I use. Here's my paint colors. So there's no question whatsoever about what equipment is there, who to contact if something goes wrong. If you have to fix a wall or thing, here's the paint. But all that seems to get thrown out the window.
So you've got it all organized, written down for them, but they ignore it.
And typically, most of the tenant/manager contracts say, anything above 250 or 300 needs a needs landlord, needs the owner approval. Everything seems to come in right at that,
Yeah.
250 or 300 level. It's like, wait a minute.
And you can have a whole lot of 250 repairs. Yeah.
They're also in the business of making money too.
Yeah, it's a for-profit business, so.
Okay.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, if I manage your property, I would use whatever contractor you want to use. I don't care. I don't mark up contractors. I don't mark up repairs.
And that's great. And I said, I go through a commercial company, I've had individuals manage my property in the past. I thought you need to have the broker's license if you're gonna manage something.
You do.
We can talk offline about that.
Okay. Okay.
Are you not a broker?
I'm not a broker. I'm eligible, but I'm not.
Or you have to have an ownership interest.
You have an
I'm not-
ownership interest.
I'm not.
That's how I do it. I get an ownership.
That's fine.
I'm not sure if it's exactly. I don't know how it would hold up in court, but someone had told me they just get an option to purchase, and that gives them an ownership interest, and then they manage it for the person. So I don't.
Like, exactly like Darla said, it doesn't seem like, and no offense to managers, I need them, but it doesn't seem like they have their same priorities aligned with my priorities. That's
Right.
bad.
Most management companies are volume business.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't really pay attention to details because they can't, because they're going volume and they have 100, 200 plus properties that they cannot possibly manage all the details, paint colors, model numbers of the appliance, all that stuff. They're just not gonna remember, and they're gonna be constantly going through contractors, and the information is gonna get lost in translation. Even if the best intentions.
So you would think though, if you gave them all that information, they could put it in their computer. So anytime they brought up his property, it would like be there, right? But I don't know.
Another problem, we're talking about that. To many of my rented properties, I would hire, because I don't want to dealing with the tenants, and like when you're exchanging, you're terminating a lease, you would give them time, you need to start marketing and getting another tenant in there. They take 2 months. I'm like, you know what? Forget this. I'll just do it myself. 1 week, I get 6 contracts. I interview. I got a tenant already in there for the next month.
I'm reminded of one time before I screened people as well. I had this one older gentleman living in a house, and I tried this, showing him while it was still occupied, before he left. But I took one young man in there, and y'all remember VHS tapes? Well, he had them stacked all over the place, and it was all, how do you say? The cover photos were close-ups of private female parts. He was apparently into pornography. It was just all over. He had no shame everywhere to see. So from that, I learned, well, I cannot show while it's occupied with him anymore, right? But if I had been in his previous home or sent a realtor or somebody to see it, probably would have seen that. I would have known ahead of time. So.
I just want to give an opportunity for anybody that either has a property that they're looking to make a deal on, or something that they're trying to sell, or
Network.
I have that one in Ohio. I'm looking for a buyer. It's in Cleveland area. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and it's pretty much, there's a tenant in there right now until June of 2024. So they're not, the only thing is they're not paying the market rent level right now. They're about $800 below market rent.
Whoa, that's a lot.
That's because the previous homeowner, that was a friend of his, and that's where he went wrong and sold it to me because it's pretty much, what I mean? So.
Are they like,
It's
right?
They signed it annual.
Did they just sign a new one so they have another year?
Until June of 2024, June 1st.
Oh, yeah, they just signed a new long-term lease when they're putting it up for sale.
Right
Yeah.
before they put it up,
Mm.
yeah. Right before they.
You should pitch it to Ohio or
Yeah, I'm about to. Yeah, I thought I'd put that out there in case anyone was
No, I
interested.
appreciate
The house is it's beautiful though, and it's in great condition. I mean, there's no repairs that's needed, but it's just that the numbers are.
800.
are not
That's a lot.
So I have that. I'm working on another one in Hampton and then one in Newport. And I have 2 others that have it under contract, but I already have a buyer. So.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, other than that, typically they try to kick us out of here by 9 o'clock, but certainly, free to network or come up and ask Darla questions if you have.
Let's talk.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being so patient.
If anybody wants to, share their experience as a speaker one night, just let myself know either tonight or next meeting. Hopefully we'll have Stuart or Tim back and we'll get you on the schedule. Thank you all.
My name's Eric. Nice to meet you. I'm pretty new. I'm on a contract for the place. And now my first time coming in. Would you feel comfortable sharing your screening criteria with me?